My friends, today's topic is white collar crimes. My name is Umesh Rao and we are discussing about domestic violence. What is domestic violence and types of domestic violence? Domestic violence against women. To control domestic violence against women, Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005 was introduced. And domestic violence against men, domestic violence against children, domestic violence against old women and old men, and other forms of domestic violence. Next subject is equal remuneration. So, what is domestic violence? Domestic violence covers all forms of physical, sexual, emotional, and economic abuses against person that can harm, injury, endanger the health, safety, limb, or well being, either mentally or physically, of a aggrieved person. So, there are so many types of domestic violence. Domestic violence against women, domestic violence against men, domestic violence against children, domestic violence against old women and old men, and other forms of domestic violence. Now, we will take up for our discussion the domestic violence against women. We, the Indians, we are orthodox and our society mindset is not mature. We are narrow minded. Our society feels that women are physically and emotionally weaker than males. Two-thirds of the married Indian women are victims of a domestic violence. Women between the age of 15 to 49 years are the victims of beating, rape, and forced sex. This women's violence against women in rural areas or in urban areas or in upper class family or middle class family and lower class family is different. Problems are different. For example, in upper in urban areas, many factors which lead to the differences in the beginning and later it will take the shape of the domestic violence. The reasons are more income of a working woman than partner, woman's absence in the house because of work at night, abusing and neglecting the woman. Working women are subject to assaults and coercion sex by employees of the organization. Another factor is violence against young widows is rising in India. They are covered, they are cursed by their husband's death. They are not given proper food and clothing. They are not allowed to remarriage. There have been causes of molestation and rape attempts by women by their family members. They are brutally beaten and tortured for not coercing, a, not conceiving a, not giving a male child. So incidents like raping of women whom for killing the female fetus when she is not agreeing to abortion it also come to the light. So what are the causes, common causes of domestic violence against women? One, dissatisfaction with the dowry, refusing to have sex with them, neglecting the children, and going out of the home without telling the partner, not cooking properly, indulging in extramarital affairs, not looking after the in laws, infertility in females, desire for the male child, alcoholism of the spouse, more income of the working woman than partner, her absence in the night and abusing in laws, coercion of sex by employees of the same organization, violence against young widows, family members, beating, not encouraging for remarriage, slapping, punching, burdening with drudgery work, public humiliation, and neglect of their health problems. Now, in order to protect the women against violence, domestic violence, government has introduced the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005. This act defines what is domestic violence. Domestic violence means it is used in the widest sense. It covers all forms of physical, sexual, verbal, emotional, and economic abuse that can harm. It may be either mental or physical of the aggrieved person. Now, who is the aggrieved person? Aggrieved person covers not just wife, but a woman who is the sexual partner of the male, irrespective whether she is legal wife or not. It includes live-in relationship also. So, aggrieved person means it includes all. In this case, daughter, mother, sister, child, widowed relative, any woman residing in the household who is related to some way with the respondent is covered by the act. Respondent, who is respondent? Any male adult, any male adult person who is has a domestic relationship with the aggrieved person. This ensures that respondent's mother, sister, and other relatives also covered in this act. Now, what is the basic features of this act? One, complaint regarding any act of domestic violence can be lodged by any person who has a reason to believe that such an act was committed. This means even neighbors, social workers, relatives can also take initiative and file a case. Second, no criminal, civil, or any other liability lies on the informer if the complaint is lodged in good faith. Third, the magistrate has given power to permit the aggrieved woman to stay in her place of residence and she cannot be evicted by the male relatives in retaliation. Women can even be allotted a part of the house for personal use. Fourth, the accused is prohibited from dispossessing the aggrieved person's property. Fifth, the magistrate can impose monthly payment of maintenance. The accused is ordered to meet the expenses incurred and losses suffered by the aggrieved person as a result of domestic violence. 7. It can also cover the loss of earnings, medical expenses, loss or damage to the property. The magistrate may make the accused to pay compensation and damages for injuries. If these injuries or damages, it is for mental torture as well as emotional distress. Penalty. Now, penalty up to 1 year imprisonment and fine up to rupees 20,000 can be imposed under the Act. Offence is considered as cognizable and non-bailable offence. Next chapter is our domestic violence against men. This domestic violence against men is seen in Western countries. Nowadays, domestic violence against men is also increasing gradually in India. The males have experienced or subjected to this domestic violence. The reasons: the inadequate earning of man, inferiority towards wives, not taking proper care of children, abusing the spouse and family, infertility of men, spying the activities of men, doubting the partner, revolt by wife. All these domestic violences goes unreported because of privacy. Next topic is domestic violence against children. Children and teenagers in our society are subjected to domestic violence. There are different kinds, categories of domestic violence against child. One, domestic violence in urban and rural areas. Domestic violence in upper class, middle class family and lower class family. Domestic violence against girl child. Domestic violence against children who are physically and mentally challenged. In urban areas, it is more concealed within the four walls of home. What is the reasons for the domestic violence of children? It may be disobeying the parents' advices and orders, or it may be poor performance of academics and comparing the child and insulting him because child is not at par with the other children in the neighborhood, and abusing the child because he is not intelligent as the parents' expectations, and not returning home in time and abusing the parents. Now we will take up rural areas. What is the reason? Harassment of the child labor and physical abuse of child, forcing the child to stay at home and not allowing them to go to schools. Domestic violence against girl child. It is another category. Girls are cursed for having taken birth in home. Sexual harassment of girl child in home by family members. Sexual abuse, rape, emotional abuse are other forms of domestic violence. Next one, domestic violence against physically, mentally challenged child. Instead of providing proper health of child, they are beaten for not cooperating by family members, cursing them for being mentally retarded, selling the body organs of the retarded children for getting money. This is prevailing only in poor families. So, main reasons for the domestic violence is disobeying the parental orders, poor performance in academics, not returning home in time, harassment of child labor, forcing them to stay at home and not allowing them to go to school. Domestic violence. Another type is domestic violence against old people. Old people at home are subjected to ill treatment by their children and their family members. This type of domestic violence goes underreported in India because old people are dependent on their children. If they complain, they will be thrown out of the house. Main reasons for the violence against them are the children are hesitant in bearing the expenses of old parents, beating of old parents, and torture for property grabbing. So, domestic violence in aged women, old women are prone to greater risk. This is, it may be material exploitation, financial deprivation, property grabbing, verbal humiliation, or emotional torture, or denying proper health care or neglect of young women by society. The women in the family denied proper health care. Old women are cut off from the society. They are living alone. They are ignored, abused, cursed. Old women, especially widows, are considered as bad women. Old women are subjected to domestic violence, atrocities by their sons, daughter in laws, daughters, and husbands. Next one, other forms of domestic violence. This is family war between the families for the dispute over the property or for physically abusing any member of other family or any religious cause or any religious cause. Other forms of domestic violence is ill treatment of servants and maids in household. It is in common in rich families. So servants are deprived of their salary and basic necessities. They are harassed, beaten without giving rest. Maids are molested by male members of the family. So atrocities against small children working as servant are also common. Next subject is equal remuneration. Equal Remuneration Act 1976 provides for the payment of equal remuneration to men and women workers and prevention of discrimination on the ground of sex against women in a matter of employment. So it provides payment of equal remuneration to men and women workers. So there should be no discrimination on the ground of sex against women in a matter of employment. So what is the remuneration? It includes basic wage, salary, additional emoluments payable in cash or kind. Some laws giving special treatment for women. In some cases, women's respected birth of child, retirement, marriage, death, they are giving some special treatment that is permitted. So Ministry of Labor is responsible for enforcing the act. And what are the main provisions of the Equal Remuneration Act of 1976? Every employer shall pay to any worker a remuneration, whether cash or in kind, equal to that of the workers of the opposite sex. Remuneration may be cash or kind. Employers should not reduce the remuneration to any worker on the basis of sex. Employer, when making recruitment, promotion, training, transfer for the same work, should not make any discrimination against the woman. Every employer shall maintain registers and documents in relation to workers employed. Now, if employer makes a recruitment in contravention of the provisions of the act, what happens? If he makes any payment, if he makes any remuneration at unequal rates to the men and women workers for the same work, he makes any discrimination between men and women workers, he fails to carry out any direction made by the government, he shall be punished with fine or imprisonment or both. Now, in the case of offense committed by company, who is responsible? Every person responsible for the offense committed, he shall be deemed to be guilty and he is liable to be punished. Thank you.